Welcome back to Mysteries of Mythology. If this is your first time here, welcome. We're thrilled to have you join us. Today, we're diving into one of the most chilling and fascinating tales of prophecy, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Who are these enigmatic riders? What do they symbolize? And what role do they play in the ultimate reckoning foretold in the Bible? Sit back, relax, and get ready as we unravel the mysteries, uncover the meanings, and bring to life the ominous harbingers of Revelation. And before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more journeys into the world of mythology and mystery. Let's begin. The first seal is broken, and from the heavens rides forth the horseman of Conquest. Clad in unyielding white, the horse he commands glistens with the purity of his purpose. But do not be deceived by the brilliance of his appearance, for white here does not stand for innocence, but the allure of dominance and the unrelenting pursuit of power. The horseman wields a bow in his hand, a weapon of distant precision, signifying authority that strikes from afar, cold, calculated, and seemingly untouchable. Upon his head rests a crown, a laurel of victory bestowed, marking him as a conqueror who bends nations to his will. In biblical lore, this rider embodies the force of conquest and expansion, a dual-edged concept of triumph. Some interpret conquest as divine authority sent to spread righteousness and the word of God across the earth, while others see it as a darker omen, a representation of tyranny, imperialism, and the lust for control. The ambiguity of this horseman reflects the complexity of power, its ability to inspire unity or wreak devastation, depending on the one who wields it. In the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verses 1-2, Conquest is introduced with the words, "I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest." This rider is both an initiator and an accelerant, setting the apocalyptic events in motion. The crown, a symbol of authority granted rather than seized, suggests that this conquest is permitted within the divine plan. Yet the bow, absent any mention of arrows, raises questions. Does his power lie in his ability to conquer without bloodshed, or does it suggest a looming, unseen force that is yet to strike? The role of conquest in the apocalypse is both profound and terrifying. He ushers in a world reshaped by dominance, territories consumed, ideologies imposed, and lives altered irrevocably. His coming signals a cascade of events, for conquest inevitably gives rise to war, famine, and death. He rides ahead, the harbinger of an era where ambition knows no bounds and humanity grapples with the consequences of its ceaseless hunger for supremacy. Whether viewed as a bringer of salvation or a herald of devastation, conquest represents the eternal tension between order and chaos, the light and shadow of human ambition. As his white steed gallops across the landscape of prophecy, the world is forever changed, driven into the next stage of Revelation's harrowing narrative. Thus, Conquest rides on, his bow poised, his crown gleaming, the first chapter in a story of inevitable judgment. He is a symbol of the first step toward the world's reckoning, an unstoppable force, an idea that transcends time, echoing the consequences of unchecked power across the ages. The second seal is broken, and the sound of thunder echoes through the heavens. From this tempest emerges the second horseman, War. His fiery steed, a horse of deep crimson, burns like a living flame, a warning of the bloodshed and destruction he brings. Red, the color of passion and violence, is his banner, symbolizing the chaos of battle, the anguish of loss, and the fury of human conflict. This rider wields a great sword, a weapon of close combat, signifying direct confrontation and the severing of peace. The sword gleams ominously, a stark contrast to the glittering crown of conquest. While the first horseman expands territories and ideologies, the second rends them asunder, spreading discord and strife. Where war rides, tranquility falters, and humanity plunges into brutal conflict, often in the name of the victories promised by conquest. In the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verses 3-4, war is described with stark clarity. When the Lamb opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, "Come." Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. To him was given a large sword. War is not merely a symbol of battles and bloodshed, but an embodiment of humanity's darker impulses. His role is to take peace from the earth, igniting the fire of conflict between nations, communities, and even within families. He serves as a grim reminder of the fragility of harmony and the devastating potential of unchecked aggression. The red horse and its rider represent the horrors that follow when power is contested and ambitions collide. Wars are fought for freedom, for domination, for survival. But regardless of the cause, war's impact remains the same. Lives shattered, lands scorched, and futures consumed by violence. The fiery red of the horse mirrors the blood spilled on the battlefield, the flames of cities burned to ash, and the searing pain of loss that war leaves in its wake. War's great sword is a weapon of immense power, not only physically but symbolically. It represents division, both literally and figuratively. It cleaves not just flesh but bonds, severing alliances and friendships, tearing apart the delicate threads that hold societies together. The sword of war is a force that disrupts balance, plunging the world into chaos and forcing humanity to reckon with its own capacity for destruction. War's arrival is an inevitable consequence of conquest. As the first horseman spreads ambition and dominance, the second emerges as the backlash, the fight for power, resources, or survival. His presence ensures that the triumphs of the first horseman are stained with blood, for conquest without conflict is an illusion. War thrives in the vacuum left when peace is taken, and his shadow looms long over the apocalyptic narrative. While war is often associated with external battles, his influence extends far beyond physical conflict. He is the spirit of discord that permeates every aspect of human interaction. He rides not only on the battlefields of nations, but also within the hearts of individuals, sowing hatred, jealousy, and vengeance. This internal war, the struggle against one's darker nature, is perhaps the most devastating of all. In the apocalyptic timeline, war signifies the unraveling of human society. He is the catalyst for destruction, the force that ensures the dominoes of disaster continue to fall. His presence signals a world turned against itself, where trust is shattered and survival is the only goal. He rides as a stark reminder that humanity's worst enemy is often itself. And yet, war, like all the horsemen, is not an agent of chaos for its own sake. He is a part of a greater plan, a divine judgment designed to bring about the culmination of history. His purpose, grim as it may be, is to expose the truth of human nature and to force humanity to confront the consequences of its choices. The red horse gallops across the earth, its rider sowing conflict and division, leaving in his wake a world scarred by battle. War is a force both ancient and eternal, as relevant in the apocalyptic visions of Revelation as in the struggles of the modern world. He is the embodiment of humanity's capacity for destruction, a harbinger of the devastation that follows when peace is lost. Thus, the second horseman rides forth, his sword gleaming, his purpose clear. He is war, the unrelenting force of conflict, the scourge of harmony, and the inescapable reality of a world in turmoil. If you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to give it a like. Now back to the seals. The third seal is broken, and from the darkness, the third horseman emerges. This time, the rider is not alone in his devastation. He rides upon a horse as black as the void, a deep, consuming black that mirrors the emptiness that follows in his wake. Famine, the third horseman. His arrival signals the scarcity of life's most essential resources, the absence of food, the collapse of systems that sustain humanity. Famine is not simply the lack of sustenance. He embodies the crushing weight of deprivation, the agony of starvation, and the slow, inevitable decay that comes from the imbalance of life. His horse, black as night, carries him across the earth, a stark contrast to the burning flames of war or the purity of conquest's white steed. Famine's power lies in his ability to drain the vitality of the world. Where war brings destruction through violence and conquest through ambition, famine brings desolation through neglect and imbalance. In the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verses 5 to 6, famine is introduced with these chilling words. When the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the four living creatures, saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine. Famine's arrival is marked by the scales he carries, a symbol of scarcity and economic collapse. The scales reflect the uneven distribution of resources, the imbalance that causes some to starve while others hoard. The phrase "a quart of wheat for a denarius" implies that basic food will be sold at exorbitant prices, creating a world where the essentials of survival are beyond the reach of most, and only the wealthy or powerful will have access to the means to survive. The command, "do not damage the oil and the wine," suggests that while the basics of life may be in short supply, luxuries and indulgences may still be available to the privileged, creating a stark divide between the haves and the have-nots. Famine's role in the apocalypse is not merely the physical absence of food. He is a harbinger of the slow collapse of society. In times of famine, communities fracture, and the very fabric of civilization begins to unravel. It is not just the poor who suffer, but the collective spirit of humanity, which grows weak when it cannot sustain itself. Famine creates desperation, and in that desperation, humanity often turns to violence, exploitation, and cruelty. The balance between abundance and scarcity is delicate, and once tipped, it is not easily restored. Famine's presence signifies a world where resources are stretched beyond their limits, where greed has overtaken generosity, and where the earth itself seems to reject the burdens placed upon it. The black horse and rider ride through a barren landscape, the air thick with the scent of decay and the silence of starvation. The weight of deprivation is felt not only in the empty stomachs of the people, but also in the hollowed-out hearts of a world that has lost its way. Yet, there is a deeper, more symbolic aspect to famine. Famine does not only represent the physical scarcity of food. He also symbolizes spiritual emptiness. Just as a society can wither without nourishment for the body, so too can the soul wither without nourishment for the spirit. Famine's black horse signifies this duality, the emptiness of a world that has lost its connection to its higher purpose. In a world of excess and indulgence, famine is the stark reminder that there is no true fulfillment without balance, without a recognition of what is truly important. Famine is often seen as the inevitable consequence of unchecked consumption, greed, and environmental degradation. Where conquest seeks to expand and dominate, and war seeks to conquer through force, famine waits patiently, a slow and insidious force that creeps in when the resources of the earth are ravaged without thought for tomorrow. In the apocalypse, famine's role is to test the resilience of humanity. Will people continue to fight for survival, turning on each other for the last scraps of food? Or will they find a way to come together, to share what little they have, to rebuild a system that sustains all? Famine is not just a destroyer, but also a teacher. He forces humanity to confront its own excesses and to question its values, asking what is truly necessary for survival. As the black horse gallops onward, famine's arrival is a foreboding sign of what is to come. A world starved not only of food but of compassion, balance, and spiritual nourishment. The rider, with his scales, measures the world's worth in terms of survival, and as the world tips into scarcity, the consequences are far-reaching, touching every part of life. Thus, famine rides forth, his horse black as the void, his scales heavy with the weight of judgment. His is a force that strips away illusions and forces humanity to face the consequences of its actions. In the wake of his passage, there will be no place to hide from the truth of scarcity and no escaping the lessons that famine brings. Now, we come to the final seal, the fourth and most terrifying horseman. As the fourth seal is broken, the heavens grow still, and a deep, ominous silence descends. From this stillness emerges the rider on the pale horse. His very presence chills the air, and his name is Death. The pale color of his horse is almost sickly, like the last light of a dying day. It is a color that reflects decay and the inevitable end of life, a harbinger of mortality itself. Death does not ride alone. Behind him, Hades follows, an eerie and unearthly companion, bringing with him the souls of those claimed by the rider's presence. Together, they bring a sweeping judgment, a final reckoning that spares no one. The pallor of Death's horse signifies the end, not just of individuals, but of the cycle of life itself. Where conquest spreads power, war plunges nations into conflict, and famine leaves devastation in its wake, Death comes to claim what the others have destroyed. In the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verses 7 to 8, Death is described in these haunting words. When the Lamb opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. Death's arrival signifies the ultimate and inevitable end of all things. His horse, pale and lifeless, is a symbol of the inescapable fate that awaits everyone, regardless of status, wealth, or power. Unlike the other horsemen, whose effects are confined to specific realms of human existence, conquest, conflict, and hunger, Death represents the culmination of all that has come before. He is the final arbiter, bringing all life to an end. Death's arrival signifies the ultimate and inevitable end of all things. His horse, pale and lifeless, is a symbol of the inescapable fate that awaits everyone, regardless of status, wealth, or power. Unlike the other horsemen, whose effects are confined to specific realms of human existence, conquest, conflict, and hunger, Death represents the culmination of all that has come before. He is the final arbiter, bringing all life to an end. The power given to Death and Hades in the Apocalypse is vast. They are granted dominion over a fourth of the earth, with the authority to kill by the sword, famine, plague, and even wild beasts. Their reign is not one of subtlety, but one of overwhelming force. The sword, famine, plague, and beasts represent the full spectrum of destruction, as Death does not simply take lives. He brings the earth itself to ruin. In this apocalypse, it is not only the human race that suffers. The natural world, too, is caught in the destructive wake of these riders. Death's role is one of finality. While conquest spreads ambitions, war ignites destruction, and famine causes suffering, Death sweeps across the world, bringing an end to the strife, the hunger, and the power struggles. He is the conclusion to the apocalyptic narrative, the moment when everything stops and the earth lies in ruins. Yet, Death is not a force of evil, but rather a natural and essential part of existence. He is not a punishment, but a necessary end. In many ways, Death's arrival represents the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. His pale horse is a reminder that all things, no matter how great, must eventually fade away. His role is to clear the way for what is to come, ensuring that the cycle of life and death continues. But Death's power is not bound to the physical realm. As he rides, he also represents the spiritual end, the severing of souls from the material world. The pale horse's rider is both a literal and figurative representation of mortality. Death reminds humanity of its limitations, urging all to face the reality of life's temporality. As the pale horse gallops across the earth, its rider's power is absolute. Nothing can escape his grasp. The sword of war, the famine of hunger, the strife of conflict, these are all part of his domain. But Death does not simply destroy. He restores balance. Without Death, life cannot continue. He is not an end but a necessary part of the great cycle of existence. Thus, the final horseman rides forth, a force both terrible and inevitable. Death's pale horse carries him to all corners of the earth, and with him, the certainty that nothing lasts forever. And that's it for today's video, where I discussed and dissected the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I hope you found this deep dive into their symbolism, roles, and significance in the Bible both intriguing and thought-provoking. These figures have left an indelible mark on culture, literature, and art, and I'm glad I could explore their story with you today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more fascinating content from Mysteries of Mythology. Your support helps me bring you more in-depth explorations of the myths, legends, and stories that shape our world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.